first we want to ask you about that audio from President Trump. I'm assuming you've heard it. What do you think?
Yeah, Becky, thank you and good morning. I listened to all 62 minutes of it last night. It sounded very familiar to me because I've had a lot of phone calls with the president, and he is a strong, dominating personality, as we know, and pretty much everybody else that's in the room or on the phone is much more timid. That said, I frankly don't find the offense that a lot of people see in it when you listen to all 62 minutes. He was going through some pretty basic math, and he believes, of course, that there was fraud in several fronts from, 5,000 dead people voting, again, his claims, not mine, 5,000 dead people voting, some people voting twice, people voting illegally, and all that math adds up to much more than the margin that he lost by. And that was the context of the conversation. I didn't get a sense he was pressuring anybody, but rather stating facts and talking about the math he needs to make up if he was to overturn this election.
I heard where he suggested that there were 500 dead people that voted in Fulton County, and the pushback from the Republicans in the state said, right, no, there were two dead people that we found on the rolls. Yeah. Do you believe the math that he believes? Is there anything that you've heard to this point that would cause you to vote against ratifying the Electoral College results?
Yeah, that's a great point, because that really gets to the heart of what I think the problem is, and that is that the referee in this game is also the defendant in the sense that it's the Secretary of State. I don't know whether it was 2 or whether it was 5,000, but one of the issues that I thought was probably the most informative in this phone call was when the lawyers talked about the inability of one side, in this case the president's team, to have access to person-specific data. That is something other than a name and a birth year. And that's what's publicly available. That's how they draw the conclusion there are 5,000. But if they don't get to see that data, then it's Becky, it's why instant replay works so well in the NFL. It's not because the same referee looks under the hood. It's because they show it on the Jumbotron. That's why a fumble has to be a fumble. And I think it's important that there is a more transparent process. That said, I'm not prejudging it by any means, and I do have concerns about Congress overstepping its constitution, the Electoral College.
Well, Senator, we should focus on that. The referee in this case is a Republican, the Secretary of State. The Constitution has it set up that the states control the elections.
That's right.
And I should focus on the last part that you said. You haven't seen anything that would cause you to vote against ratifying these results.
What I have seen, though, is there's a great distrust around the country, not just by Donald Trump, but by lots of people. And polls show anywhere from 17 to 30% of Democrats believe that the election was either rigged or that there was fraud. That has to be adjudicated in some public forum. Courts have failed to take it up. States are defending themselves, whether they're Republican officials or Democratic officials.
The courts have taken this up.
No, the courts have largely punted it away, Becky, and that's still not satisfactory.
The courts have decided that they didn't want to overrule the votes of millions of voters. That's what the lawyers have asked them to do in many of these cases.
But they've not had adequate hearings to demonstrate in a public arena their reasoning for that. All of this needs to be settled to the satisfaction of the voters of this country, or there's always going to be distrust. I mean, we went through an entire phony impeachment process, completely partisan, with made up. In fact, the evidence they used to impeach the president actually vindicated the president. All the while, we should have been fighting the spread of coronavirus in the early stages, and that was perpetrated not just by the left, but by a lot of members of the media. So I don't think the sky is falling. I think that dealing with the Electoral College, I come from a red, small state. I don't want to have our votes overturned by other members of Congress from other places. I don't see in the Constitution where we even actually have that authority, quite honestly, and I read it again this morning to be sure. But all of that said, I do think there has to be some sort of a commission. I'm working with colleagues to find a way. Ted Cruz has one plan. I think there can be other plans, maybe more effective plans than the one he has. I think there has to be some sort of a commission, bipartisan, that looks at not just this election, but at reforms going forward so that we can avoid this in the future.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.